Okay, so how are chemical compounds like compound words? Well, if you think about, sometimes we put words together and different words go together to make one word. Like playground. The word play go together with the word ground to make playground. And in the same way, sometimes we have atoms of different chemicals that come together to make a completely different substance, and we call these compounds when this happens. So, and we started reading about compounds. We've looked at how to refer to or how to think about the elements on the periodic table, and we use chemical symbols to talk about them. And we also looked at what molecules are, where two atoms come together, and sometimes you have two atoms of the same element that come together to make kind of like a molecule of a pure substance. Sometimes you have atoms of different elements that come together to make molecules of a compound. So let's read this paragraph, we'll mark it, and I'll show you a couple of examples. So compounds can be represented by chemical formulas. So we're going to circle this in red. Chemical formulas. Okay? A chemical formula is a type of shorthand or abbreviation used by scientists to represent the elements that are present in a compound. And these chemical formulas tell us how many atoms of each element are actually present in that molecule. So each element of a compound is represented by its own unique chemical symbol, and we've looked at those in the periodic table. For example, sodium chloride, which is a table salt, is a compound that consists of one atom of the element sodium and one atom of the element chlorine. The chemical formula for the compound sodium chloride is written like this. So, for example, let me get a different color here. So, if I have a molecule of sodium, and I'll just kind of mark it like this, and I have a molecule of chlorine, and I'll just mark it like that. If these two molecules bond together, and this is what generally happens, this is what happens when a molecule forms, especially of a compound, then I now have a different particle that is combined of these two atoms of these two elements, and these two elements actually come together to make what we would call sodium chloride. And this is how you would write the chemical formula for this molecule. Okay? So, so when we think about molecules, we have to be able to talk about molecules the same way that we would talk about elements. And so, atoms of elements. And so, when we look at these two atoms joined together, this is actually how we would refer, how we would talk about or name this molecule. Okay? So we have sodium chloride, it's written NaCl, and we would just read that, sodium chloride. Now, an interesting thing that I do want you to understand, the next paragraph, we're going to talk about some little numbers that we write down to the bottom and to the right of the chemical symbols for the elements when we're writing about a molecule, and those little numbers are actually called subscripts, and they actually tell us how many atoms of a given element are present in the molecule. So let's just finish. Let's get our so what is a chemical formula? If you'll come up here, okay, we need to tag this with green. A chemical formula is a type of shorthand or abbreviation. Let's just say it's a way that scientists use. So we'll say it's an abbreviation used by scientists to represent the elements present in a compound. Okay? Now, it also tells us how many atoms of each element are present. So you might say to me, well, Mr. Woods, I don't see any numbers down here that tell me how many atoms are going to be in sodium chloride. Okay, when there are no numbers written down here, it's understood that there's a little number 1 down there. And we're going to talk about this more in the next when we look at the next paragraph. So for now, just understand that if you ever see elements written in a chemical formula that don't have a subscript written beside them, this little number is a subscript, okay, then it simply means that that element has a little 1 there. And that 1 tells me that there's one atom of sodium and 1 atom of chlorine in this molecule of sodium chloride, okay? So these 2 atoms join together to make sodium chloride. All right, you do need to grab your blue marking pencil because there are a couple of main ideas here that I want to make sure we get underlined. So right here, compounds can be represented by what? By chemical formulas. All right? And then down here, each element in a compound is represented by its chemical symbol. You remember the chemical symbol is the name. This actually comes from the periodic table. So we can make a little note out here. This comes from the periodic table. Okay, and we're basically talking about the names of the elements there. Okay, so please mark your paper carefully. Write these few little notes on there. Show yourself a little example of sodium chloride here. That's this element right here. And you can see there was no subscript written by the Na, no subscript written by the Cl. And whenever that happens, there's always understood to be a 1 there. And as we look at the next paragraph, you'll see what I'm talking about when we take a look at a couple of other ideas, at a couple of other chemical formulas that actually have some other numbers in them. Okay, so please mark your paper, and we'll look at the next video.